a firestorm when he said, like, what about Cousins and Byram for Pedersen? Is that where we're at in terms of, how to fix this Buffalo thing? Do they need to make a big move like that?
They need to make a big move, I think, but at this point, you can't just do something with all the buzzards circling around, like all the crazy blog type things coming out of Nashville. Oh, the Predators are going to get Dylan Cousins. Well, the Predators might want Dylan Cousins, but they might want to talk to the Sabres about what they're going to offer. I mean, some of these things you hear are pretty ridiculous, but that's the problem Kevin Adams has right now is he's not going to get a good trade. Nobody's going to help him out here, but you can't stand pat and do nothing either because it goes back to what happened with Jason Botterill in 2018 before they drafted Dahlin. He finished last overall, and he famously said at a press conference, this mix is not working. Well, it applies again. This mix, for whatever reason, is not working. They have to change it up. There's going to be a core player here who has to be moved sooner rather than later at some point. They're just, what are they going to do? Lose 16 or 18 or 20 in a row? You got to do something here.
And Mike, do all Buffalo Sabres fans take Mr. Pakula at face value when he says no major changes and Kevin Adams will have plenty of time to fix this? He's the guy.
I think people do take it at face value because they're disgusted by it. This team hasn't shown a penchant for making a lot of moves here. At some point, maybe just for optics, you're going to probably have to remove the general manager. You're not going to fire the coach. You just brought him in, and it's Lindy Ruff. I mean, but the idea that the thought is that you could sit there with an NHL team on an 11-game winless streak that could go deeper than that and do nothing to try to fix it and just watch your team careen into last place in the Eastern Conference is just incomprehensible to me. But right now, that's what they're doing.
So is Dahlin going to make this? He's a huge difference maker for this team, I think. And his absence here, has that been a major reason why they've struggled? You lose that many one-goal games and you're missing Dahlin. That's got to be related.
Yeah, it's tremendously related. The power play has been terrible, and he's certainly the quarterback there. And he's, we kind of joke amongst ourselves, cover the team. He's like a one-man breakout at times.
Right.
I'm pretty convinced when the score was 4-1 in the third period against Colorado, if you had Rasmus Dahlin out there, you probably wouldn't have lost that game. But he hasn't been out there, and the defense has struggled without him. He's a guy who plays 25 minutes a night. And they just haven't been able to pick up the slack and get over the hump in some of these games. You guys saw in Toronto the other night. They had a 3-1 lead. And what happens? They go haywire for 2 or 3 minutes. They give up 2 or 3 goals. We've seen that act before. And all of a sudden a 3-1 lead is a 4-3 deficit, and they lose another game that they probably, for the first 30 minutes had a good handle on.
I got to ask you about Owen Power, Mike, because it seemed like yesterday we were talking about this big stud college player coming in and being great right away. And it looked like he was just on this trajectory to be a superstar in a very short period of time. And now I'm watching him, and lo and behold, he's 22 years old. He's closing in on 200 games in his career, and he struggles in his own zone. That's the only way I can describe it to you in a nutshell here. And is this just a classic example of too much too soon?
Yeah, they didn't need to sign him to a 7-year deal at $8.3 million a year, and they did. He's really kind of on the same plane Dahlin was on. In 2021-22, Dahlin really struggled at times and had to get through some hard times in year 3 and year 4. Young defensemen. I mean, Victor Hedman went through this too. But they paid him so much already, you're expecting superstar production at age 22, and he's not there yet. He's certainly not close in the defensive zone. He has to improve his awareness on the ice in the defensive zone. He has to improve his physicality. But he's a big guy who doesn't really hit. He's more of a finesse player, so you don't know where that's going to develop. But right now the problem is the losing culture around the team makes it difficult for Power. People need the instant gratification. They need to see a star player, and you're just not getting into 22 years old.
And sometimes, like, if you can just get saves, it kind of papers over a lot of the drama. How is the goaltending situation playing out there? Nobody with a 900 save percentage, but UPL, how's that gone?
He's been good for a large portion of the time. Now, he hasn't really been good here in the last few games. I didn't like some of the goals in Montreal the other night. Slavkovsky beat him on a bank shot from behind the goal line, and even a couple of Line A's goals. They're rockets, but the whole arena knows it's going over to Line A. You got a shade to that side, and he got beat twice on shots that I didn't like. He needs to be better. He's like everybody else in this team. They need to be better. They cannot continue to make the same mistakes they're making. And, once in a while, you've lost 11 in a row. Your goalie needs to steal you a game. And he hasn't stolen them a game during this run either. And that's also a problem.
Mike, I'm going to give you one crack here to be the general manager of the Buffalo Sabres, and you're going to create a little bit of a Jack Eichel blockbuster here with one player in this lineup. Who would you choose? Would it be Dylan Cousins like everyone else is choosing right now?
Boy, I think it's Dylan Cousins everyone else is choosing because they like the potential, they like the body, they like the age. Believe it or not, if you wanted to get a big package, maybe it's Tage Thompson or Alex Tuch. A little bit more older, a little more distinctive. You kind of know what you have, and they're both fine. Tuch has missed some good opportunities this year, but I do think they need to really make a big move here, and I'm not sure the GM is capable of doing it, and I think a lot of other teams are trying to fleece him too. But, how do you I go back to how do you continue to do this? They need more men on this team. They have too many kids. They need more NHL veteran players on this team right now. They're still rebuilding, but at some point you've got to try to win hockey games, and you can't rely on draft picks and prospects because the GM's not going to be around. They need to get some more veteran players in here. You think of the Bowen Byram for Casey Middlestat trade. That was a hockey trade. The Buffalo Sabres need another big hockey trade of NHL regular players to try to shake this thing up.
Kip, to back Mike up on that, the Sabres are the youngest roster in the NHL, 26.1 years of age right now.
Hey, Mike, get those Leaf fans to keep it down to a dull roar, would you, tonight?
I don't think it's going to be very much of a dull roar.
Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Yeah. All right, take care, gentlemen.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mike Harrington, Buffalo News Sports.
Yeah, youngest roster in the league at 26.1. Canadians are 26.4. Flyers and Sharks right behind him.
Boy, you hear the frustration of covering this hockey club in his voice.
Yeah.
I will say the Tage Thompson thing's interesting to me.
You can't trade good players and get better.
No, but I don't know. I know the 2 points he made there. Them trading right now is horrifying because everybody's circling.
Oh, yeah, you're trading. Yeah, you want to trade your good players.
All the savvy general managers in the league are got Kevin Adams on speed dial right now, calling him, picking away.
Can you imagine Kevin Adams right now just contemplating a Tage Thompson trade?
Oh, my God.
No.
Come on.
The Owen Power thing is interesting if you believe that he's not going to become something else. Because I still think he's a talent that can become something really, really special. I still think it's within him.
I do too.
He's got to find an edge. You cannot be 6'6", and maybe Hedman's the type of guy he should just be looking at. And Mike made a valid point here. In year 3, there's still some struggles.
Yeah.
And then the way he blossomed. But there's a streak in Hedman.
Yeah, but you got
Leafs facing center crisis amid injuries, eyeing trade market for solutions. As the Toronto Maple Leafs battle through a growing injury list and a suspension, their lack of depth at the center position has become a glaring issue. According to Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman in his latest 32 Thoughts article, the Leafs are among the teams exploring trade options to bolster their lineup. This effort is coming amid increasing competition from teams like the Chicago Blackhawks and Nashville Predators, who have also set their sights on improving their center depth. Friedman didn't mince words about the Leafs' predicament. The teams currently focusing on centers, including Chicago and Nashville, must consider when others will enter the market. Toronto will undoubtedly be one of those teams, he wrote. While the Blackhawks and Predators may have an edge in terms of cap space and assets, the Leafs remain a team to watch as the season progresses. The Leafs situation is urgent, with up to 7 forwards currently unavailable due to injury or suspension. Ryan Reeves is serving a 5-game suspension, while key players like Austin Matthews, upper body, Matthew Knies, upper body, Kaye Jarnkrok, groin/sports hernia, David Kampf, lower body, Max Domi, lower body, and Max Pacioretty, lower body, are all sidelined. The team has even considered temporarily shifting Mitch Marner to the center position, highlighting the severity of their depth issues. This isn't just a short-term concern for the Leafs. Depth at center has been a persistent challenge for the team, and while stopgap solutions like Marner could help in the interim, the front office appears keen to explore longer-term fixes. For fans of the blue and white, this has been a recurring theme. The Leafs' center depth often becomes a problem at the worst possible times. James Myrtle of The Athletic recently added more fuel to the speculation, naming several potential trade targets who could help the Leafs address their issues. Among them is Ryan O'Reilly, a familiar name for Toronto fans. O'Reilly, who signed a 4-year, $18 million deal with Nashville in 2023, might be a trade candidate if the Predators' underwhelming start to the season, 6-11-3, 31st in the league, prompts a rebuild. However, his steep price tag and history with the Leafs, including rejecting a free agency offer less than 2 years ago, make this a complex and potentially unlikely move. Other names mentioned by Myrtle include former Leaf Nazem Kadri, currently with Calgary, as well as players like Michael Granlund, Nick Jugstad, Brock Nelson, Yanni Gourde, Trent Frederic, Radek Faksa, and Sean Kuraly. While some of these options seem more plausible than others, it's clear that general manager Brad Treliving will need to get creative to find the right piece without mortgaging the team's future. Cap space remains one of the biggest obstacles for the Leafs. Unlike teams like Chicago and Nashville, which have more flexibility and assets, Toronto is walking a financial tightrope. As Friedman noted, competition will intensify as cap-constrained teams strive to create room. For the Leafs, that could mean waiting for the market to develop further, a risky move given their current needs. The situation also highlights the Leafs' ongoing struggle to build a roster that can withstand the grueling nature of an NHL season. Injuries are an inevitability in hockey, but Toronto's current predicament underscores the importance of depth, a quality the team has struggled to consistently maintain. Looking back on recent years, the Leafs have often leaned heavily on their star players, particularly Matthews, Marner, and William Nylander. While these players have delivered in spades, the lack of reliable depth options has left the team vulnerable in critical moments. The current crisis at center is merely the latest example of this recurring issue. Some fans have called for more aggressive moves from Treliving, arguing that now is the time to strike while the team's core is in its prime. Others, however, are more cautious, pointing to the dangers of overpaying for short-term fixes. Striking the right balance will be key, especially as the Leafs aim to keep their championship window open. Despite the challenges, there's no denying that Toronto has the talent to be a contender, provided they can patch up their lineup. The ongoing rumors and speculation surrounding potential trades show that the Leafs are at least exploring every avenue to strengthen their roster. For fans of the blue and white, this moment feels like a pivotal point in the season. With a lineup ravaged by injuries and a tough schedule ahead, the Leafs must act decisively to avoid falling behind in the standings. The addition of a dependable center could be the difference between weathering the storm or watching another season slip away. Whether it's O'Reilly, Kadri, or another surprise name, one thing is certain: the Leafs are under pressure to deliver. And for a fan base as passionate and loyal as Toronto's, there's no room for excuses. The time to act is now, and Leafs Nation is watching closely. As the trade deadline approaches, the stakes couldn't be higher. Will Treliving pull off a move that solidifies the Leafs' status as a contender, or will the search for center depth become yet another chapter in the team's long history of what-ifs? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure: it's never boring in Leafs land. As the Maple Leafs navigate this critical juncture, their fan base remains as vocal as ever. Toronto is a city that breathes hockey, and the pressure on Brad Treliving to make the right moves is immense. Every decision he makes, or doesn't make, will be scrutinized, from talk radio to social media, where Leafs Nation is already debating the merits of the various names being floated as potential trade targets. Among the louder debates is whether the team should prioritize a high-profile acquisition like Ryan O'Reilly or Nazem Kadri, or focus on a lower-cost, reliable center who can fill a supporting role without costing too many future assets. While O'Reilly's leadership and playoff experience make him an attractive option, his contract and recent history with the Leafs add layers of complexity to any potential reunion. Similarly, Kadri's gritty, two-way playstyle remains a fan favorite, but his cap hit and availability might render him an unrealistic target. Another factor complicating the Leafs situation is their tight salary cap. While Chicago and Nashville can make moves with relative ease due to their financial flexibility, Toronto must navigate a labyrinth of constraints to make any trade work. This likely means including salary retention or moving existing contracts to make room, which could drive up the cost of any potential deal. The question then becomes: how much are the Leafs willing to sacrifice to address their immediate needs? One potential trade partner generating buzz is the Seattle Kraken. Yanni Gourde, a dependable two-way center, has been mentioned as a possible target. Gourde's versatility and championship pedigree from his time with Tampa Bay make him an appealing option. Seattle, however, is in playoff contention and may not be inclined to part with a key piece unless the Leafs can provide a substantial return. Another intriguing name is Brock Nelson of the New York Islanders. Nelson is a consistent scorer and reliable faceoff-man, qualities that would undoubtedly bolster Toronto's center depth. However, the Islanders are notoriously cautious when it comes to trades, and prying Nelson away would likely require a significant package, including picks or prospects that the Leafs may be hesitant to part with. For all the trade talk, some analysts believe the solution might come from within. Sheldon Keefe has shown a willingness to experiment with his lineup, and players like Pontus Holmberg or Fraser Minton could be given an opportunity to step up. While relying on less experienced players carries risks, it might be the Leafs' only option if the trade market proves too costly or slow to develop. Adding to the Leafs' urgency is the timing. The Atlantic Division remains one of the toughest in the league, with teams like Boston, Florida, and Tampa Bay continuing to dominate. Any prolonged slump could see Toronto slip further down the standings, putting their playoff hopes in jeopardy. For a team with Stanley Cup aspirations, failing to address their weaknesses could have catastrophic consequences. Brad Treliving's history as a general manager suggests he's not afraid to make bold moves. His time with the Calgary Flames was marked by blockbuster trades, including the acquisition of Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar in the Matthew Tkachuk deal. Leafs fans hope he brings that same decisiveness to Toronto, especially as the trade deadline looms. Beyond the immediate need for a center, this situation underscores a broader issue with the Leafs roster construction. Depth has been a perennial concern, and while Toronto boasts some of the league's top-end talent, their reliance on a handful of stars has left them vulnerable in moments like this. Moving forward, addressing this imbalance must be a priority for the front office if the team is to achieve sustained success. As the Leafs head into a critical stretch of the season, the next few weeks could define their trajectory.